when you become very, very like independent or just being on by yourself, it bears so many consequences. So let's just start it off by, I don't know, just talking about independence. Wow, big topic. But I think, well, rather, I feel that it's something that I've been thinking about for a long, long time. And maybe something na most people tend to think na independent sila, pero hindi naman talaga. I would like to just probably start off by talking about yung generic na feelings ko about it, in generic na sentiments and personal experience with yung independence na din mismo. Um, I think it's very difficult for most people to actually achieve yung independence. Kahit sabihin natin na yung definition mo lang ng independence is just making it out on your own, living by yourself. Um, Most people tend to think na parang, oh yeah, I've moved out and I'm perfectly fine na. But to be honest, most of the time I really feel like it's really fucking difficult. Because like the first thing that you soon deal with, especially sa mga nakilala ko na nag-move out on their own, is you really don't have anyone else to rely on. You just don't. Like, yung parang akala mo dati ang dali-dali lang, and then you end up with a lot of things that you have to take care of yourself na before other people were taking care of for you. Laundry pa lang, 'di ba? Sobrang mahihirapan ka na. So yeah, um, personally speaking, I think I've lived quite a charmed life. Not much I really actually have to deal with on my own, kahit noong bata pa ako. And I'm very much aware of yung privilege that I have. Even being able to talk to all, what, five of you? Um, I really feel like it's just a lot of course, luxury or privilege nga naman na I'm very lucky to be one of the few people out there who can still live an okay life, even though right now a lot of people out there are suffering because of your current situation. And there are some problems that I may never be able to truly relate to. And there are some problems na feeling ko if I try to speak about it, nasasabihin ko na I can understand, I can relate. Medyo sampal sa mukha ng mga tao na yun eh. Kasi never naman ako makaka-relate talaga eh. Sabihin natin may mga nagugutom dyan sa kalsada. Tapos sasabihin ko na, oo nga, nakaka-relate ako na nagutom na ako once, like hindi ako kumain ng isang araw. Sampalin ko mukha mo eh. Um, eh, Definitely I've had experiences where I wasn't able to eat like for like 48 hours and that was really bad. So I have a glimpse of what it's like. Pero yung iba yung iba yung insecurity na mararamdaman mo na when you really can't know, you won't know when your next meal or where your next meal will be coming from eh. May dagdag na ganyan na parang element na sa utak na it just feels really bad and I can't ever relate sa mga ganyan. So I don't want to really talk about how um I don't really want to talk about how I can understand, about how I can relate, and I know very much na I am in a position of privilege na I don't really have to worry about a lot of yung mga things na ganyan. In essence, I think I take some things for granted, and I'm very blessed to be able to do that. That sounds bad. I'm sorry. Pero gets there are I'm well taken care of, and it's something to be very grateful for and to be very aware. Kasi may mga tao na magsasabi na, why don't you just work harder? Why don't you just be happy? Why don't you just do things? Uh, yun nga, I know I've said this like so many times, pero parang, wow, fucking genius. But yeah, I'm getting kind of off topic, but you know what I mean lang na I don't, I know for myself na talagang I am very, very blessed to be able to live this way and to live kind of okay. And just having an internet connection actually puts you at one of yung pinaka most privileged people in the world because there are some people out there na wala man lang dial-up. If you guys remember yung mga yung mga ISP Bonanza, mga ganun, really dates me like kung, like what generation I'm from, if you still know what dial-up is. So yeah. But yeah, going back, um, I admit I've like thought about like being more independent overall, and I've struggled with it because it's incredibly difficult if everything is provided for you right from the very beginning. In my case, somehow ganyan nga. Even though yung kapalit nun was I had to do well in my studies, I had to focus, I had to do these things na para lang masabi na I am kind of earning my keep. But that's that's like a super small thing compared to actually making it out there and living on your own. Kasi when you're actually living on your own, kahit sabihin natin na you have some relatives out there na pwede mong tawagan, like parents mo, just in case you get into some sort of problem, that's still that's even a bigger thing nga eh, kung nandyan ka eh. So personally, I think it's incredibly difficult to be completely independent because, as they say, no man is an island. But there are also those things na gusto ko din um, siguro my experience for myself. I think it's definitely going to be something like you go out there and live it yourself, tsaka mo lang malaman kung gaano kahirap talaga. As most of our parents have probably already told us, kung wala na kami, tsaka mo lang ma-appreciate. So tell your parents you love them. Thank you for all of yung support, if ever. But of course, if they're assholes, they're assholes. Like, wag mo na excuse yun na parang pinakain ka namin, dapat may gratefulness ka. Parang, I get it, but don't do that. And if you're a parent, maybe please don't do that. Then, okay, so let's take some of yung mga comments about it. Yung current topic. Even though I know medyo magulo yung pag-usapan ko, pero usually these kinds of lives are more of me trying to sort things out, maybe kind of talk to myself about it, and maybe if some people can relate, then that's great. What's the first step to independence in your opinion? Actually believing that you can provide for yourself. Actually making it so that you don't really rely on anyone else na when it comes to living on your own. Meaning, say that you start living in an apartment, you have everything covered. You have your bases covered, you have maybe some medical supplies sa bahay, paracetamol, mga antibiotic, and then you have enough money na budget mo for like say food and everything else. When you stop relying when you stop relying heavily on others to provide for what you need in life, I think that would be yung masasabi mong independent ka na somewhat. But this is talking about like in general in life. Iba pa yung emotional independence. Meron pa yung independence of thought. So maybe I should have retitled this episode. But we can talk about those things then naman when we're gonna be talking about emotional independence or um, independence of thought from yung what is yung popular opinion, how to think, mga ganun. What do you think about independence in relation to Filipino values? I'm going to answer this in a way na I feel na yan yung interpretation ko. I think people hate it. Locally speaking, kung independent ka, when you try to speak your mind, when you're able to provide for yourself, people tend to try to bring you down. Because let's face it, karamihan naman sa atin, we don't live independently. We are still in the care or under the care of yung relatives natin, parents natin. And the moment you try to make more out of yourself or make more for yourself, and you're starting to be able to provide for yourself, sasabihin nila mayabang ka. Sasabihin nila na wala kang modo, wala kang utang na loob. And I think it's sad. Kasi it's not bad to actually try to make something for yourself, at least in my very personal opinion, I think everyone should strive to be more self-reliant. If not independence, I think the best term for it would be being self-reliant. Na you don't need to rely on somebody else. Kasi the moment you continue to rely on somebody else, there are going to be some people who are going to hold it against you. How many times have we heard yung words na pinakain ka namin, pinalaki ka namin, dapat may utang na loob ka. If anyone out there is taking psychology, definitely yung psikolohing Pilipino pa lang, ang laking bagay na yung whole thing about utang na loob, mga ganyan. Pero kung ganyan kasi, what is this emotional blackmail? You should be having kids nang hindi mo ini-expect na sila maging insurance policy mo in the future na ikaw mag-aalaga sa kanila eh. That's another topic. Medyo naiinis ako sa mga ganyan. But yeah, in relation to Filipino values, independence, I think is something that the majority kind of tries to drag down or parang tinatry nilang i-bash kasi nga, I don't know if it's just a local thing, but people tend to want to, if they see something that's better than them, they just tend to just want to tear them down or try to say something negative about that just to make themselves feel a little bit better about themselves. I think there were some viral videos before na gusto ko yung feeling na yung sinabi nun was something like we didn't belittle intelligence. We aspired towards it. Wala eh. Nangyari na lang dito is if someone's better than you, oh, pipintasin mo para makaramdam ka na you don't need to improve. You don't need to change. Which is like, dude, this is why single ka pa. De joke lang. Pero there's the tendency na ganyan nga naman, di ba? Na parang kung todo pintas ka lang sa may ibang tao and you'd never strive to better yourself. I mean, for the single ones out there, can you imagine that? Imagine nyo kung may isa kayong parang super pogi or super chicks na na crush mo. Tapos malaman mo na they do this constantly when they see someone na siguro sorry, mas maskulado sa kanila. And then sasabihin nila something like, oh, parang I bet na maliit yung puso niyan. Like, there's that tendency, eh, di ba? Parang imagine if they keep doing that every single time they feel insecure about themselves. But maybe that's different. I don't know if that is kind of related, but there you go. How do you cope independently? Mm, wow, this is difficult. You're asking some really good questions, actually. Um, I think that's one of the most difficult things to deal with because a lot of the problems that we deal with in everyday life is something that we tend to um, take for granted. Now, there are other people out there that we can talk to about it, but it's the same thing with those at the very peak of performance and those at the top of, say, companies, corporations, mga ganun. It's lonely at the top. And if you're one of the few who are able to live on their own or be more independent, do something for yourself, it's something that is incredibly difficult to do. I know, medyo roundabout yung dating. I know it sounds awkward. I'm sorry for that. But I think it's incredibly difficult to cope, especially sa mga emotional troubles natin in life. I think the tendency is somehow you'll process it by yourself. You'll kind of accept it. Maybe you learn not to be super attached to anything, or you learn to really process it quickly and not really think about it all that much anymore. I think that sounds like something that would be discussed more along the lines of like what coping mechanisms. I'm not 100% sure about that, but definitely it's easier if you're able to talk to people about it. Kahit konti. There are some problems that won't be solved by talking about it. I know, personal experience, but I really feel that it's very, very difficult Kasi it's one of the biggest things that you have to deal with immediately, especially if you go to positions of leadership. Mahihirapan ka talaga because there's no one else you can consult by yourself. You have to make the decisions. And that's why a lot of people don't like being in positions of leadership because it has that extra oomph na kailangan mong i-deal with. Hi, first time to join. What's the topic for tonight? In general, independence. But so far, it seems like we're talking more along the lines of self-reliance. Kasi there's independence na emotional independence, there's independence of thought. But I think overall, it's about yung being more self-reliant nga naman. And one of yung na-mention ko na kanina na pinakamahirap nga to deal with is being more self-reliant to the point that you don't really rely on anyone else, whether it be financially speaking or actually living on your own. A lot of it hindi ko talaga ma-imagine at this time because, as I've said earlier, I know that I'm in a position of privilege. I don't really need to strive a lot to get this or that for now. But say that I do end up living on my own, then I'm pretty sure na that would be something I'd have to deal with. So props to those definitely sa mga living on their own right now and is able to provide for themselves. You guys are the real MVPs because right now I can't claim that I know what it's like. I can't claim that I know how to deal with it later on. If you guys like, for those who are living by themselves, maybe you'd like to have a comment then or put down a comment now what it's like overall, what's the most challenging thing that you've been through living on your own. And for those who would like to have a little more independence, say that you'd like to move out na soon, then put it down. Baka meron kayong goals na we'd like to talk about or what we can do about it at this time, or at least make a plan about it. Independence from mental addictions, like mga na-experience natin. Oh, wow. That is so incredibly difficult to answer, but I'll do my best. I think knowing me and knowing us na dun sa mga napag-usapan natin about mental addictions, this relates to relationships, I think, or like getting out of relationships. Again, I'm going to say it out loud. It's incredibly difficult. It's not something that's easy. It's not something that's done overnight because, truth be told, most of the time, those are real addictions and those are real withdrawal symptoms that you'd be experiencing. Sabihin natin, ma-breakan ka, ma-reject ka, ganun. What was once there is no longer there. And humans feel or have the tendency to feel very strongly about losses compared to gains. You're going to want that thing that you had before. You're going to want it so bad, especially kung matagal nang nandyan. And I think the way I can answer this is um, looking at yung mental addiction as a habit. It's something that you would have to override. Usually it's best if you try to override it somehow with another habit. Kasi let's admit it, most of us have these habits, these dependencies na we never really get to getting rid of. That sounds really bad, I'm sorry. But there is a strong tendency for people to stay with the habits, to stay with yung mga kasanayan na nila. And so there is incredible mental resistance to stop doing this or that thing na nakasanayan mo na. So what more kung you experience a big loss na what was once there is no longer there, diba? And that's why, again, I'll bring it up again here kasi it really helped me nga, na parang when it comes to sabihin natin moving on from a relationship, it's going to be about no contact. Meaning, yung one end is not trying to pursue what you once lost and just leaving it up to the other person if they will come back or they want to talk to you again. And you really work on yourself. the other portion na trying to build a new habit nga, to override the previous habit, it's one of the best things that you can do for yourself. And again, sabi ko nga, it's for yourself. You can't just say things like, um, I'm gonna do this for the sake of the other person. But most of the time, yun nga, if you're going to try to get rid of old habits, or you're not gonna be able to get rid of your old habits. Rather, the new habits will overtake yung old habits. Wow, I'm sorry. This sounds like really heavy stuff. There are a lot of YouTube videos on it. Definitely, I recommend Improvement Pill and The Art of Self-Improvement. You can look that up on YouTube. They're very simple, and you can definitely get started on self-improvement because that's something I'm very big on. Relate to that a mental addiction. Yeah, I mean, think about it pa lang sa Facebook pa rin. Sa Facebook pa lang eh. What's the first thing you do when you wake up? Facebook, probably. Cell phone. Um, Maybe to others, it would be comfort foods. So you cope with things by eating. But definitely, social media is one of yung biggest things nga naman na masasabi ko nga nandyan. So, sabihin natin na it's social media. You have an addiction to social media. You don't really even feel that it's an addiction. It's just there. But then you start feeling these things na parang, I really want to check it. And that's something I've felt before. Na parang it's something that is incredibly difficult to get rid of. If anything, you probably can get rid of, but you can only lessen yung grip niya sa inyo. If there are people who are familiar with the term, there's also NoFap. I'm pretty sure a lot of us are going to be like, that's fucking impossible. But it does have its own benefits, and you never really get rid of the habit. I don't think you really get rid of the habit, but it's more like there are all of these other things that are so much better than what you already have or were doing. So it kind of overtakes what you were doing in the past. You don't find it interesting anymore. To put that into perspective, I know I'm not an expert on this, but I've heard of it na discussed before na the people on the streets na nagiging drug addict, it's because they don't have much else to really do. Or interesting man. May magja-judge sa kanila, sasabihin ninyo na, oh, um, disgusting, you don't want to associate with them, you don't want to think about it. But um, to be honest, social media or Facebook is just about the same. It's just a matter of choosing your own drug. Imagine kung wala kang internet connection and you were left alone for a week. You don't have any books, you don't have anything, but that ends up being the only thing na nagiging entertainment mo. Not speaking talaga naman in favor of that, but you know what I mean. So yeah. But anyway, what's emotional independence all about? I think that's an okay topic to actually close na din so far about this, about yung current topic nga, which is independence. I do realize na parang naging super awkward overall itong usapan because like hindi ko na cut down yung whole thing about na parang na nalagay dun sa parang yung category mismo. But I think emotional independence is all about being able to regulate yung emotions mo and handle your emotions without relying too much on other people. Or if ever you're able to process them better and move. Because if you're anything like me, I do have the tendency to rely on others if ever I need to get myself to process things better. And I also have the tendency na hindi ako magalaw masyado if I'm feeling really bad, emotionally speaking. So it's definitely something I'd like to improve on. It's not something I'm great at the moment, but I think definitely it's a very handy skill, especially if you're going to move up in life. You're not going to be able to rely on people a lot talaga. So yeah. So just to wrap it up lang naman, because I think um, it's a difficult topic to discuss unless may na zoom in ako or parang may nalagay talaga ako dun sa mismong yung category na yun about what kind of independence it should be. I guess I talked more about being more self-reliant today, especially maybe when it comes to living on your own. I really feel like it's incredibly difficult to move from being completely dependent na nagre-rely ka sa parents or any other relative out there to living by yourself and not relying on anyone else. I think it's very emotionally and mentally taxing, and kudos to those who are able to do that. I myself feel that I would have huge difficulty when it comes to that, and people just don't seem to understand na when you become very, very like independent or just being on by yourself, it bears so many consequences. Na now you're responsible for a lot of things na before meron kang safety net. But when you're actually on your own, nawawala yun lahat eh. There are some people, of course, who have had to do that na nafa-force sila to actually do that immediately. So props to them if they were able to surmount those. Definitely big praise. I'd like to learn to be able to do that myself. Mm, I hope I can actually get to that point, and I'm not 100% sure na how I'll be able to do that, or how I'll be able to do it, how I'll be able to prepare ahead of time for it. I think it's one of those things that I would actually have to go out there and do it. Parang OJT lang. You have to get used to it. You have to just stop having that mentality that somebody else is going to save you if something happens. I think that applies to a lot in life, and whether it be siguro emotions or mga parang thinking about things, we tend to depend on people, and it's very difficult to be self-reliant nga naman. So, thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Maybe you, if you want, you can just drop by, leave a comment kung ano yung mismong gusto mong topics. I hope that if ever anyone out there is feeling a little off, please do take a rest, and I'm hoping that things will get better. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.